Teaching is like making art. Hello, my name is Carly Brett and welcome to my seminar presentation for EDE 4103. The breakdown of my presentation will include an introduction to my metaphor of teaching, my results attained from a survey of philosophy, my mind map of who I believe I am as a teacher, and lastly, an encapsulated view of the 5 principles of teaching and learning and how each resonate within my metaphor. My metaphor was created after I conducted the survey and found that my results were progressive at 92%. Whilst the other 4 philosophies followed closely, I concurred with the results of my test and found each component resonated with my teaching style. Following on from my survey results, I then created my mind map and asked myself the question, who am I as a teacher? This then branched off to 6 major points: my values and beliefs as a teacher, theories that resonate with my teaching style, understanding of my learners, relationships and interactions as a teacher, past experiences that shaped my teaching style, and lastly, the role of my teaching environment. As I formed my mind map, I realized that play-based learning resonated within each of the 6 points. This is mostly evident with the theorists and theories that I resonate with who each support a play-based learning environment. These include Piaget, Montessori, the Reggio Emilia approach, Bronfenbrenner, and Vygotsky. Another evident belief of mine whilst teaching is being able to adapt to the individual child and adjust my teaching style to each. My metaphor, teaching is like making art, was then encapsulated, as there are many different supplies that are needed in order to create art. It can be simple or it can be a challenging and thought out process. My metaphor. Teaching is like making art. Art comes in many different styles, such as abstract art, surrealism, conceptual art, pop art, photorealism, and impressionism, to name a few. Although these styles differ from one another, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they all need a variety of tools in order to be completed. Making art is an enjoyable experience, and the experience can be as small or as big as you like. Art can be used as an expression aid, and each artist can adapt their art to whichever style they are feeling at the time. Making art can be a minimal experience by only using one instrument, or it can be exponential by including many instruments and textiles. It doesn't matter how the art is made. If you created art, you are an artist. Art can be based around many interests and can include a variety of supplies to cater to each artist's style. These can include paints, pencils, oil pastels, textile crafts, inks, glitter, and even 3-dimensional items, including Play-Doh, clay, wood, and feathers. Artists are all individual and each have their own personal preference to how they like to make their art projects. While some artists only create monumental drawings made with coloured pencils, others will only base their art upon crafts and create a colossal art piece made with only wood. It doesn't matter what style of art an artist creates, they are still an artist and each have their own talents based on their interests. Art can also be a social experience, as collaboration is sometimes needed between artists in order to finish a certain piece. This collaboration can be in the form of informative lessons in order to improve certain skills, or to ask for advice. Each artist has their own set of skills and are always learning new techniques to improve their art. The art community is a supportive environment and accepts all artists and everything that they have to offer based on their talents. Whether you're an independent artist or a famous artist such as Picasso, Van Gogh, or Michelangelo, each and every talent is part of a community and greatly respected. Next are my 5 principles for teaching and learning to frame my explanation of my metaphor and how it reflects my personal philosophy. My first principle for physical, social, and intellectual development is based around my belief in play-based learning. Play-based learning within a classroom comes naturally to children, and it is seen that children's language and conceptual understandings are more active when teachers and educators are actively involved within their learning. Real-life learning through a play-based program encourages children to follow their own interests and fascinations, and in turn gain an understanding of problem-solving skills, real-life senses, language skills, and social skills. How does this principle link to my metaphor? Making art is based around play-based learning. Artists are encouraged to explore their skills through being able to express themselves and portray this within their pieces. This is also portrayed within a play-based program within a classroom. Students are able to engage within a lesson whilst being able to express themselves and portray their individual ideas and thoughts. Although an artist can freely express themselves, they will stay within their certain style of art. This is much like the classroom, where teachers keep within the designated curriculum guidelines. How does this principle link to theorists? Play-based learning is linked to many theorists and theories. Vygotsky states that children learn through play and interacting with their peers, and through the zone of proximal development. Children act as a conduit to a child's development of skills and strategies. Montessori believes that children will learn best when they feel a sense of security within their learning environment, and in turn will gain self-motivation and a connection to the world around them. The Reggio Emilia approach is followed closely by Montessori, in where an equal learning initiative is taken place within a learning environment. The Reggio Emilia approach sees the child as a competent protagonist and allows them to follow their own interests within the classroom. How would I enact this principle in my practice? A play-based model is essential within the classroom, whether in the early childhood classroom or within the early years of primary school. This can be done through my progressivist approach, where hands-on experiences can be planned, such as field trips, group investigations, and simulations. This will allow each child to have an active role within their learning. My second principle is understanding how students learn, and will be focused upon the interests of the child. Each child is an individual, and each have different interests. Teachers and educators play a crucial role in supporting students' ideas, without simply letting them do as they please and without any direction. Through effective interest-based planning, students are able to gain a greater insight into their interests, thus implementing the appropriate curriculum. How does this link to my metaphor? Artists base their art projects around their interests. An artist will not do a piece of art they are not interested in. Therefore, a student should not be forced to endure a lesson to which there is no interest to the individual child. A student should be given the opportunity to express their ideas towards their classroom lessons, which will enable a more democratic classroom, in which each child gets a say in their own learning, just like an artist gets a say in their own artwork and how they wish to create it. Linking my principle to theorists. Maria Montessori and the Reggio Emilia approach both use a democratic methodology within their learning, and both believe that each child should have the right to be an active participant in how they are taught. Students are encouraged to make their learning visible by creating their own portfolio. This includes photographs of their projects and work, artwork, and even quotes said. Students who are engaged within their work in progress will feel a sense of accomplishment and pride in what they have achieved. How will I enact this principle in practice? Within my classroom, I would ensure that all students are involved in making their own portfolio, which will include assessment pieces, photographs, and personal quotes. This correlates within my progressive philosophy of education, in where all students will take an active role within their learning process. My third principle is diverse linguistic, cultural, religious, and social economical background, and will be focused upon diversity. As a teacher, it is important to have an understanding of diversity and how diversity needs to be implemented within the classroom and within the planning process. An inclusive classroom includes the form of positively accepting everyone, and this includes the forms of race, class, culture, religion, and gender. How does this link to my metaphor? Artists come from all around the world and include a vast variety of diversity. This also includes the artist's chosen style of work. Each differ with how they make their art projects. Some may only use charcoal and only create black and white pieces, while others may use a variety of colours in their artwork. It does not matter how the artwork is created, the pieces are still labelled as art. The same principles are seen within the classroom. It does not matter what race, gender, or class a student is, they are still classed as a child. How does this principle link to theorists? Bromfield and Brenner's ecological system links directly to the child and the child's environment. The ecological system shows 5 different levels within the child's environment and explains how each child is an individual. The microsystem within the ecological system is directly linked to the child and their school. Each child will create personal relationships within their school, including classmates and their teachers. Thus, classmates and teachers having an influential impact directly onto students and in turn will influence how a child grows and develops. How would I enact this principle in practice? I would enact diversity within my classroom by firstly getting to know my students individually and recognizing their differences so that I can appropriately prepare my lessons. This is an important aspect within the classroom, and differences should also be acknowledged by all students and shown that being different is not a negative thing, but in fact shown to be a positive aspect in how each child is their own individual person. My 4th principle is strategies for teaching Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students with the focus of inclusion of Indigenous culture within the classroom. Identity is an important aspect of life and one that children have difficulties with understanding who they are. An image may promote ideas about certain racial, ethnic, or cultural location, though it does not depict who you are and what is meant by your identity. How does this link to my metaphor? Artwork comes in many shapes, sizes, colours, and styles, though they all have one thing in common, and that is that they are all defined as art. The same definition follows through to children. We all come in many different shapes, sizes, colours, and styles, though they are still just children. Some children may have blonde straight hair, and others may have black curly hair. These differences make individual characteristics and should be viewed in a positive light. Indigenous Australians, including Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders, have individual characteristics and should not be judged upon how they look, as you do not have to look a certain way in order to identify as Indigenous. The same for artwork. It does not have to look a certain way in order to be classed as art. How does this principle link to theorists? The Reggio Emilia approach emphasizes diversity and accepts all children for who they are as an individual. This approach sees all children as strong, interested, capable, and curious, and strongly suggests working within the community, thus encouraging children to listen, observe, and ask questions to support and develop collaborative learning at a young age. How would I enact this principle in practice? Within my practice, I will ensure that all Indigenous Australians are treated as equals and will include their culture within my practice by paying respect to Indigenous elders past and present. I will be involved within my Indigenous community and ensure all students within my classroom are engaged with the Australian Indigenous culture, both past and present. My 5th principle is differentiating my teaching to meet the specific learning needs of students across a full range of abilities, with the focus of inclusiveness. Respect for all students is important, and all students need to be prepared for inclusion in all lessons. Students are individuals and each have different abilities. Therefore, it is important as a teacher to meet specific learning needs of all students across a range of abilities. How does this principle link to my metaphor? Making art is appropriate for all abilities, and each style of art can easily be adapted to make it easier or harder to create. There are some artists who do not have hands and therefore use their feet and or toes to create their art pieces. The same principle is catered for students with different abilities, including a variety of stationery, tools, and colours to cater for each individual. A big paintbrush may be preferred by one student, though a thin paintbrush may be preferred by another. Each will reach the same outcome despite using different sized equipment. How does this principle link to theories? Piaget states that children will learn through discovery and that children will benefit from doing and actively being involved. Individual learning and having to be flexible within a curriculum is an important aspect of the classroom in order to make children the central focus of learning. How would I enact this principle in practice? In my practice, I would ensure that I cater for all abilities, and in order to do so, I will use program modifications such as TREE. TREE is an acronym: T for teaching strategies, R for rules or how the activity is structured, E for the environment and ensuring surface and weather is appropriate, and the last E is for the equipment or tools that are going to be used within the classroom. Through using such a process to develop my lesson plans, I will ensure that all abilities are met and no students will be left out of the lesson.